When your king is not castled, or it's castled on the queen side, for example, in this case we have a knight that is pinned in f3, the bishop is pinning it. When your opponent king is castled on the king side, what you want to do is you want to be able to get this rook involved, right? There's no queens on the board, no specific tactic. You want to get this rook to open the file G. So in this case, don't worry about the integrity of the pawn structure. For example, right now it's white to move, and the best move is to play bishop e3, just develop, right? Also h3 will be okay, right? No one's winning here, it's an equal game. But the point I'm trying to make is you have a dark square bishop that goes on this diagonal, potentially hitting on g7, and you have a rook that wants to cooperate. So what you do is you leave the knight here. There is always keeping an eye on e5. Yes, at the moment the knight is pinned, but you can play h3, I mean, anytime you want. So in this case, for example, the engine doesn't like knight to d2 to protect the knight. You just don't need to do it. And the best move, as I said, is bishop e3. If I place the knight in f1, again, the engine just doesn't want to play knight d2 to protect the knight and keep the pawn structure. He really likes to be taken. So at the moment, this bishop is confined to a role of just pinning the knight here, and potentially you can just play later on. I mean, if he takes you, you're just happy. Later on, you might play h3, and if the bishop goes back to h5, for instance, then you can play g4, the bishop moves, and then knight to g3, with the idea of playing bishop to g5, attacking the knight, pinning it basically. The knight can't really move anywhere to protect his bishop. So after you're done taking the knight, then you're able to keep pushing the pawns on the king side. g5, for example, bishop has to move, and then h4, and that's how you're supposed to make use of this position. And to prove my point even more, I've decided to reset the same position without the e4 pawn, meaning that right now the black player is threatening to take the knight and break our pawn structure and give us this double isolated pawn. But the point I was trying to make is that when there's no queens on the board, you've got a bishop that can go to h6 and a rook that can go to g1, then this pawn structure here, a double isolated pawn, is not a problem. Yeah, you might say that it might not be good for the endgame, but it's giving white slightly better chances. So in this case, the engine just doesn't play knight d2 to protect the knight. It plays knight e3, obviously for an attack on the bishop, meaning that it doesn't care about bishop takes f3, break the pawn structure. And if the knight starts on b3, the best move here is h3, still proving the point.